Jalen Hurts, for whatever reason, he's just not seeing things clearly right now. Basic concepts he's not seeing. And that really handicaps and hamstrings your offense when your quarterback just can't execute basic concepts. And that's what he's struggling with right now.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It's one of our favorite days of the week. It is a teaching tutorial Thursday. Yes, we know that doesn't make sense. Yes, we know it's redundant. It's kind of a joke, but that's okay. It's no joke when we have on the civilian GOAT, greatest of all time. Greg Cosell from NFL Films will join us momentarily to break down the biggest games, what he's seen on the video. I know a lot of you love this day. You love to check out the social media clips from Greg at Ross Tucker Pod. Of course, I'll repost them as much as I can on all the different platforms at Ross Tucker NFL. Also, a lot of people like to watch this day on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. And I assure you, I will have winners tomorrow for those of you that spread the word via social media in some way, usually a repost or a comment or whatever, or rating and reviewing the show counts. Take advantage of any of our sponsors. Forward me that email. Could be Game Time, could be West Shore Home, could be Future Fans. Love those of you that take the time to make a comment on YouTube as well. youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Greg, of course, presented by Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka. Please drink responsibly. Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Okay, Greg, there's a lot to get into. It's a juicy week. I guess I want to start with the trade that went down with DeAndre Hopkins going from the Titans to the Chiefs. Obviously, you watch a lot of Chiefs. I know you watch the Titans because you do stuff in Tennessee, because I follow you on social media like everybody else should, at Greg Cosell. What are the Chiefs still getting in DeAndre Hopkins? What does he still bring to the table?
Well, I think what he brings to the table at this point is a short to intermediate weapon who knows how to get open, knows how to find voids and zones, can probably still win somewhat versus man, but I think at this point in his career, he's not quite that guy. But right now, the Chiefs are a team, they don't really have any rhythm or timing to their pass game. And I don't know whether it's a function of Mahomes not being comfortable with his receivers, but he's not dropping back, hitting his back foot, delivering the football. He's moving prematurely. None of us know what's in his head. But if you were just to look at the Chiefs' offense right now, Ross, without knowing what Mahomes has been in his career, which some would argue he's a Hall of Famer right now, but if you did not know about the Chiefs and what Mahomes has accomplished, you would say that this is a team that's built on its run game and outstanding defense, and the quarterback is making just enough plays in critical moments for them to win. But their pass game has been very inconsistent. It's been very erratic. There's no real feel to it at all. And I'm sure they're hoping that Hopkins, with his experience, with his understanding of coverage, can at least present throws to Mahomes so the offense can have a much more calculated feel to it.
He's the biggest 6'1" receiver I've ever seen in the NFL, if that makes sense.
I know exactly what you mean.
Greg, you think he's 6'3", 6'4", but he's really only like, I don't know, 6'1", 6'1.5". I'm just impressed by the body positioning, the catch radius. Even when he's not open, he's still kind of open if you throw it to the back shoulder or away from the defender, you know?
No question. I mean, he's one of those guys that you feel very comfortable throwing him the ball because he's essentially open even when he's not open. But it'll be really interesting. I mean, clearly they're looking for receivers. They've not really been able to get Worthy sort of integrated into their offense just yet. You know this, Ross. just because a guy can run fast doesn't automatically mean he's a vertical threat. How often in this league do you just see receivers who run by corners? That doesn't happen very often at all, even when guys are 4-2-1. So just to say he's fast and that makes him a dynamic vertical threat. Although I will say this week that Mahomes overthrew Worthy on a deep post on the first play of the third quarter, because from a reduced split, he did run by the safety, Mustafa. That's the way the coverage played out, and Mahomes overthrew him, which doesn't happen very often.
Let's get to tonight's game, Vikings-Rams. I guess your thoughts in general, but maybe in particular, Greg, a lot of talk about the Rams have put Cooper Kupp more or less on the trade block, which is interesting because he's coming back for his first game, I think, in a month with that ankle injury.
Yeah, and again, he hasn't really played a lot the last couple of years, so he's a very hard guy to evaluate. We know at his best, when he had those 2 or 3 phenomenal years, actually beginning as a rookie, that he's such a good route runner, tremendous understanding of how to beat both man and zone, fit perfectly into that Rams offense with all those cut splits, meaning he lined up closer to the formation where you don't get a lot of press coverage, and he could get free access into his routes where he could really set up DBs, which he's a master at. So again, we don't know what's going to happen. The Vikings, to me, are a really fascinating team. Obviously, they lost their first game, but it's not because they did not play well. They just happened to play a Lions offense that right now Jared Goff is playing as well as any quarterback in the league, and he understands the Vikings defense. If you don't play against the Vikings defense often, they're a very difficult defense to play against. They give up yards, and they do give up points at times, but tactically and conceptually, they're very difficult to play against.
No question. All right, what about the game that I'm going to be calling, Greg? I'm curious about both these teams. It's the Ravens and the Browns. It'll be Sunday, 1 p.m., CBS. As a reminder, I love when you guys take a screenshot of me on camera at the start of the game and hit me up on social media. It's almost an automatic repost at halftime or after the game. I don't do that stuff while the game is going on. I want to ask you about both teams' offenses here, Greg. Let's start with the Ravens offense. I mean, every number, every stat is like off the charts fantastic. I mean, they're doing stuff, Greg. They lead the NFL in basically every offensive category.
Yeah, I mentioned Jared Goff. You could put Lamar Jackson in that category as well. Lamar Jackson is playing as well or better than any quarterback in the league, both physically and mentally. He's really advanced as a player. He always was just a unique cat in terms of the way in which, the physical athletic traits. But he is now playing incredibly smart, intelligent football. He just looks so good watching him play. And you still get those plays. I mean, a great example, and I know people can't see this, but the Bateman 59-yard completion this past week that came in the second quarter was such a great example of the chess match and of what Lamar brings to the table. I mean, he was forced out of the pocket by a rusher who was clean to his front side. And because he was forced out of the pocket and it was a blitz, the deep post safety, Whitehead, started to jump Andrews because he thought that's where the ball would go on a quick throw because it was a blitz and the blitz got in clean. So he abandoned his deep middle responsibility. So what happened? Lamar gets outside the pocket, and where does he hit Bateman? In the deep middle. I mean, it's such a great example. But Lamar is playing such smart football right now. And then you add in the Henry factor in the run game. And Henry's now getting so many of his yards in the second half, which is what we've seen throughout his career because he's such a difficult guy to tackle. But this is a really fun offense to watch. And like I said, I can't stress enough how well Lamar Jackson is playing.
Greg, there's all those stats about how often Todd Bowles blitzes. He blitzed Lamar on more than 61% of the snaps.
I know.
One of the 3 biggest and Lamar ate him up. Ate him up. That says a lot about Lamar's mental processing and how he's handling the blitz these days.
Oh, no, it's funny you say that because a couple of weeks ago was week 5 and there's a rematch of that game this weekend. He blitzed Kirk Cousins a ton as well. And that was the game in which Kirk Cousins threw for 509. And those two teams have a rematch this week. But you're right. Todd Bowles is going to blitz no matter who he's playing, and he's not going to stop.
All right. What about the other side? It's been a while. I think 22 since
Yeah.
Jameis Winston started a game. I'm kind of looking forward to it, Greg. When Jameis is out there, what do you expect from Jameis on Sunday?
Well, I think just everybody immediately thinks he's going to throw interceptions, but people may not remember that the last time he played, he was the starting quarterback for the Saints. And unfortunately, I believe in week 8 that season, he tore his ACL. And I think at that point, the Saints might have been 5-2. He was playing really good football. He was not turning it over very much. Jameis Winston's always been a really good thrower of the football. I had a chance at one Super Bowl to talk with Jameis Winston at an event. He's an incredibly intelligent kid, truly loves the game, studies it. I'm really anxious to see what this offense looks like because they have a playoff caliber defense. They just had a really poor offense, and you know what I say is all based on film. Deshaun Watson was not playing at the level of a starting quarterback in the NFL. And again, Winston has not played in so long, so I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to come out and be great. But if they let him play and he's the quarterback, he was a former number 1 pick on merit. So I'm very anxious to see Jameis Winston because he throws the ball really well. He understands the game. Obviously, they lost Amari Cooper, so I'm very curious. Another play I'm very anxious to see, and I know you're doing the game this weekend, is I'm very anxious to see Cedric Tillman. I really liked him coming out of Tennessee. He's now obviously going to get more snaps.
By the way, for those of you watching on YouTube, this is Princeton orange, not Cleveland Brown orange, just for the record. All right. What about the Eagles and the Bengals? Greg, curious what you're seeing from these teams. I do know you watch the Eagles every week. You curious your thoughts on them against the Bengals?
Well, big win for Princeton against Brown this past weekend, by the way, Ross.
Friday night, I was able to watch that. Yeah, it was
I know
great.
they were not having a great year, so that was a big win.
Needed it for sure.
I think when you look at the Bengals offense, a burden always falls on your outside corners when you play the Bengals offense because Joe Burrow is the kind of quarterback, and every coach would say you need to do this. When you get one-on-one on the outside, particularly, it's outside the numbers. I'm not talking about reduced splits. When it's outside the numbers, when he gets one-on-one, especially with Chase, but certainly Higgins as well, Joe Burrow is going to throw the ball to them. I don't know. They probably have some kind of immediate check or whatever. We see quarterbacks tap their helmet, tap their side, whatever they do. But Joe Burrow's throwing the ball outside the numbers when he sees one-on-one. So for Darius Slay and for Quinyon Mitchell, they're going to have to be aware of that literally on every play because that's where Joe Burrow is going to throw the ball when he sees one-on-one outside the numbers. As far as the Eagles, they're a difficult offense to watch right now. Jalen Hurts is not playing very good football. They're a running football team. Their defense has played a lot better the last couple of weeks. Now, people can say they beat the Giants and the Browns, and that's fair because those are two of the lesser offenses in the league. But if you just look at what they're doing and how individuals are playing, they're playing better on defense. But the Eagles can't sustain, if they want to be a true playoff team, they can't sustain the way they played last week. Your quarterback has to be a bigger factor. Jalen Hurts, for whatever reason, Ross, and he's played a lot of football games, and you do them in the preseason, so you're familiar with him. For whatever reason, he's just not seeing things clearly right now. Basic concepts he's not seeing, and that really handicaps and hamstrings your offense when your quarterback just can't execute basic concepts, and that's what he's struggling with right now.
Interesting. I think he ended up being 10 of 14. But
yeah,
so
I think he had 20 dropbacks in the game, which is not sustainable. You know this in the NFL. But they were able to, obviously run the ball. And, I don't know if you saw this, but there were 5 snaps in which the linebacker, Ben Van Sumeren, lined up as an offset fullback, and he actually had some really good blocks in the run game.
Yes, I love that. I thought that was a cool changeup. What about, I want to make sure I get to the Jets and Patriots, because I'm assuming you got a chance to check out the Jets.
Yeah.
And just kind of get your thoughts on them.
Yeah, obviously everybody's going to talk about the Jets offense. This may seem like, an awkward statement to some, but my sense watching the Jets passing game is that they're close, that they're going to become good real soon. Now, this may be the week. We know that the Patriots have not been particularly good on defense. Maybe this is the week. the one thing the Jets have struggled with, and, I didn't expect Adams to come in and all of a sudden, be the elixir and everything would be great. But the Jets have struggled to generate any kind of consistent intermediate passing game, and that has significantly limited their offense. Their longest play this week was a kind of a quick check down in response to pressure to the back haul. The Wilson 27-yard completion this week in the fourth quarter was a slant route that was run after catch. Lazard had a 20-yarder that was a back shoulder fade, but they just really haven't been able to generate an intermediate passing game with route concepts, combinations that create good spacing. I mean, but I sense that they're close. And obviously we know Rodgers is hurt with his lower body, but he's out there, so you just have to evaluate it based on what you see. But we'll see what happens. And I thought that his 2 interceptions this past week were, the second one by Bishop was an unbelievable throw by Rodgers, just an unbelievable throw that just hit Wilson in the chest and bounced up in the air. I'm not even sure how many quarterbacks would have attempted that throw. But it was a great throw.
What about the Giants and the Steelers? And I'm bringing that up because that's obviously who the Jets just played Sunday night. Giants and Steelers will be the Monday night game. And in particular, curious to see what you saw from Russell Wilson and the Steelers offense with him under center.
Yeah, it's the Seahawks offense. It's run game foundation. It's play action boot. It's a highly schemed basic pass game. And it's some deep shots, especially to Pickens. You can play that way when you have a strong defense, and the Steelers do. So they're basically running conceptually the same kind of offense that Wilson ran when he was with the Seahawks, because that's who he is. He's not a truly calculated reader of coverage. You're not going to be asking him to do a lot of that. So you play off the run game. I mean, the last 2 weeks, Najee Harris has gained over 100 yards. He had 21 carries this past week. If they can get him 21 carries every week and he can gain around 100 yards, that's exactly they want to play. There's a ton of play action boot, and then they'll take their shots. He throws a great deep ball. They'll take their shots. And Pickens is a really gifted receiver. I mean, I think Pickens, in terms of pure traits, again, we're not making a list of who the best receivers are in the league. That's what people always think when I say this stuff. But just in terms of pure physical athletic traits as a receiver, given that he's 6'3", he's top 5 in the league.
Well, he certainly is capable of making top 5 type of plays. The question is, the consistency, which is always the thing with a lot of these guys,
Yeah, but I mean, they'll throw the deep ball. Now, Wilson will throw the deep ball. I mean, he's going to throw it 1-on-1 to Pickens.
What about a team having issues? It's the Niners. That's a Sunday night game. Cowboys, Niners, Greg. And want to get your thoughts. I guess the Cowboys had a bye, so the Niners lost again and still don't look real good.
No, the Niners offense looks a little bit out of whack. One thing that's really stood out, and maybe it's a function of Purdy and what he's comfortable with going back to his college days, but, what do we think of, Ross, when you really think of Kyle Shanahan going back a number of years? You think of him with the quarterback under center, the zone run game, the play action that works off that because it puts second level defenders in conflict because they have both a run and a pass responsibility. And everybody I've ever spoken to on defense said, hey, that run game and pass game and play action pass game looks exactly the same, so it's really tough to decipher. Well, Purdy has not really been under center very much this year. In fact, more than 80% of his dropbacks this year have been in the gun. So I wonder if, maybe there'll be a little bit of a reset. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan's a lot smarter than I am, knows his players better than I do. But you wonder if maybe there'll be a little bit of a reset. Mason last week only had 5 carries in the first half. Now, granted, he only gained 3 yards, but that's the nature of the run game at times. But it's very rare for a 49ers running back, the main back, to have 5 carries in one half. And for whatever reason, I think Purdy's been playing a little fast the last month. I don't think he's been as comfortable in the pocket. I don't think he's seen some things as clearly as we've come to expect. There's been pressure at times. But he's also, in my view, and again, I don't know what's in his head, but in my view, based on just pure tape, I think he's been a little quick to break down and move at times.
What about Buffalo and Seattle? I'm looking forward to that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Seattle's a passing team. I mean, Geno Smith has thrown the ball more than any quarterback in the league by a wide margin. They got a little bit of a run game working last week. I think they need to continue to move in that direction. I mean, Geno's become a really solid player. I don't know what the status of Metcalf is. I don't know what's been reported. I don't know if you've seen anything. I guess they said he had an MCL injury. Normally, guys don't play the next week, but you never know. But one thing I was really happy to see with the Bills, as you probably know, I do Bills stuff every week as well. You know, I had always felt through this season that they really hadn't had a pass game that really did a great job with spacing at all three levels, deep, intermediate, short, and that it didn't really present a lot of clean reads for Josh Allen. And when Josh doesn't get a clean read right away, he's going to leave the pocket. Sometimes he leaves prematurely. But I thought last week they did a much better job with that. Now they have Amari Cooper. We'll see how it goes. But the Bills now have an interesting offense because Cooper obviously is a good receiver. Shakir gives them a lot in the short to intermediate pass game. They're still running the ball effectively. So their offense is going to be interesting to watch moving forward.
Check him out on social media. He is the man at Greg Cosell. That way you always know what Greg is up to. Greg, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ross. Love it as always.
Oh my gosh, Greg is so good. Sorry, Jack, you're going to have a bunch of clips from this one. You know what else is so good? Me getting a new project from westshorehome.com/Ross. Love what they did with the front door. The upstairs showers are incredible. My daughters love theirs. So I thought, why not get a new door, a couple new doors, but especially the one for my office studio. It's in bad shape. Getting the upgrade, 72 months, 0% interest with up to $1,500 off, which is incredible. No interest until 2030. A lot of times people will say long-term 0% plan or a discount. This is both. So I'm taking advantage of it. You guys should as well. Hopefully a bunch of you have already checked out the before and after pictures at my house. We're getting more soon. The project's coming in November. westshorehome.com/Ross. westshorehome.com/Ross. Absolutely no I in football, and Smirnoff knows that. It's a we thing. We experience it together. Tailgates, watching at a friend's house. Smirnoff's the world's #1 vodka, official vodka partner in the NFL, and they're giving fans in select areas of the country a chance to win the ultimate game day experience, from tickets to sideline passes and so much more. Just head to WeDoGameDays.com until November 15th to enter for your chance to win. Smirnoff, We Do Game Days. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age. No purchase necessary. 21 plus. End 11/15/24. See rules at website for participating area and other important details. Sponsored by Diageo Americas Incorporated, New York, New York.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, the biggest news from yesterday is the Seahawks. They traded Jerome Baker and a 4th-round pick to the Tennessee Titans for linebacker Ernest Jones. Meanwhile, the Panthers, they're going to Bryce Young again. Andy Dalton, he sprained his thumb in a car accident.
Well, I'm glad that that's all it was for Andy Dalton. I guess he was with his family when that accident happened. That's obviously concerning. As for the Seahawks trade, so what's so interesting about that is the Titans, right at the end of, or a few weeks ago, they swapped late round picks to get Ernest Jones from the Rams. The Rams were ready to move for him. So the Titans swapped late round picks, and now they get a 4th round pick and Jerome Baker for him. So kudos to Rand Carthon. That's a nice move for him to get a 4th round pick and get a guy in Baker. It also tells you how desperate the Seahawks are to get a better player at that position. They obviously really do not like Baker to give up that for Jones. And I'm anxious to see if watching Andy Dalton for over a month helped Bryce Young at all. I kind of thought they would go back to Bryce at some point, and this obviously gives them a reason to see if sitting and watching helped Bryce in any way.
Bunch of other news around the league. The Raiders, they signed quarterback Desmond Ridder. Cardinals edge rusher Dennis Gardeck, he tore his ACL. The Ravens, they activate cornerback Arthur Mollett. Commanders, they cut former first-round pick Jamin Davis. Texans, they signed linebacker Devin White. And Cowboys kicker Brandon Aubrey, he missed practice because of jury duty. One last note, Mike Evans is out until at least week 11 with a hamstring injury.
A lot there. Ritter got emotional talking about the Raiders calling him and being back on an active roster as a practice squad guy. He said, he's had a child ever since college, and he said to her, Daddy has to go to Vegas, and talked about that. So we'll see. I mean, who knows? He might even get a chance with the Raiders at some point this season. Another chance. He had a lot of opportunities with the Falcons and was not able to do it. I mean, the fact that he couldn't make the Cardinals roster and that nobody else picked him up on a roster, I think says something. Speaking of the Cardinals, Gardeck was probably their best edge rusher, so that's a pretty big loss. Mollett might be coming back right at the nick of time for the Ravens because they might not have Marlon Humphrey for my game Sunday. Jamin Davis, boy, that was a bad first-round pick by the Commanders. To take a linebacker and then he's not good. Devin White, didn't work out with him in Philly. I have never heard of a player missing a practice because of jury duty. Never, ever, ever have I ever heard of that. That is, I could say a lot about that, especially since it's a kicker, but I won't. Bucs wide receiver Mike Evans. Now Baker Mayfield has, it's tough to lose a receiver. To lose both at the same time, really tough.
And we do have a game tonight. The Rams, they're hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Who do you like in this one and why?
Well, this is my DraftKings Thursday Night Football pick presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. This is kind of a tough one because short week on the road for the Vikings. I guess I'm curious to see how many Vikings fans are out there at this game since it's a Thursday night game. I'm going to take Minnesota. They're the better team. But the whole dynamic of Cooper Kupp coming back, playing tonight, he's on the trade block. This ends up being a fascinating game because of the whole Cooper Kupp situation. Is it a showcase game for Cooper Kupp for all the other teams that I'll be watching tonight? I guess. I'll still take the Vikings to get it done. Decent amount of points, but I think Stafford goes after Brian Flores in this blitz. Let's go 27-24 Minnesota. Other than that, Jack, make sure you check out all the other shows and submit your winning potential things. Sponsor confirmation, social media. I'm going to announce winners tomorrow. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. That is an automatic winner in the sense that you definitely get a signed autograph from me if you order a myfrontpagestory.com story as a gift for any loved one in your life. It's incredible. I highly recommend it. Big fan as well of backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com.